when you have a band of 4 people, I think they should be considered a unit. It shouldn't be the 3 guys with this one person out in front. I don't believe in that really at all.
And I had my ass sitting in a drum stool for 10 years, you know, and now I get to stand up.
It was hard to imagine, you know, making music or joining a band because it was just too painful. So I honestly don't know what I did. It was months and months and months. I do remember at one point thinking, okay, I'm just going to go to Ireland. so I rented a car. I was driving around Ireland, lost. I have no idea where I am. And it felt good. It felt good to just disappear. It felt really good to be away from all of that and just to, you know, just to be alive in this beautiful place. And I was driving down the road and I saw a hitchhiker.
Here I was in the middle of nowhere, and I saw Kurt's face looking right back at me. And it was in that moment that I thought, okay, I have to go home and get back to work because I'll never outrun this.
Obviously, I was so blessed and honored to have been in that band, but I needed some continuation of life.
The entire time that Nirvana was out making records and playing shows and stuff, I would come home from tours and just write songs in my bedroom and record them in my basement. So when Nirvana ended, you know, at first I didn't want to do anything, of course. I didn't want to join a band. I didn't want to listen to the radio, play music. And then eventually I realized, like, wait, I'm 25 years old. My life is not over. So I need to celebrate like every day because I'm lucky to be alive. So I thought, all right, I'm going to pick sort of like 12 or 13 of my favorite songs that I've ever recorded and take them to the studio right down the street. So instead of having 15 minutes to make a song, I booked 6 days, which to me was like making the White House. Like that was like forever in a studio. I just went down, we made a bunch of coffee, and I just started blasting through songs. Like first take on the drums, run in, put a couple of guitars over it, put the bass on it. Next song, first take on the drums. It just, I was, because I didn't think it was going to be like a record. It was more just like fun, you know?
I went to the cassette place down the street, said, could you make 100 of these? And made a little card to go in it. Yeah. And I just started giving it out to people. And I called it Foo Fighters because I wanted people to think it was a group. But no, it's weird. Like, you know, when we started, when we started, it wasn't even a band. It was just a demo tape I made by myself.
Yeah.
I played all the instruments. I did it in 5 days. I thought it was really fun. Nirvana was over. I didn't have anything to do. I was depressed. And I thought, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to just go to the studio and record some shit by myself. Recorded it. I made 100 cassettes. I made a little cover for the cassette. I called it Foo Fighters because I didn't want people to think it was me. I wanted it to be like, oh, this new band is really cool, when really it was just one person.
And there was never any thought that you were going to do, Dave, as kind of a solo project.
No.
It was always going to be a band.
No. I mean, yes, it was always going to be a band, but I couldn't. I'd just be the biggest buffoon if I was a solo artist. It would just be the most ridiculous thing you'd ever seen in your life.
But it was also tough, too, because, you know, one of the things about starting this band was it was time to keep moving, you know? And after something like that happens, it's like you don't know how to recover from something like that. There's There's no textbook to help you through something as tragic and horrific as that. So,
and it's public.
Well, yeah, and so it was just time to keep playing, you know. I'd been in bands a long time before that. I wasn't ready to give up music, you know. And there were times where I really felt like it. It was hard to listen to music because I would just associate it with the death of a good friend of mine.
It wasn't just like starting a band. It wasn't just like putting some guys together with instruments. It was a bit more emotionally, it was a bit more emotional than that. It was a continuation of life. You know, Pat and I had been in Nirvana, our drummer William and our bass player Nate had been in a band that had ended prematurely, and so we were young and we were not finished playing music. But more than that, we just needed something to look forward to. We needed something to like get us through life. And if you think of it that way, then every day you wake up and you really appreciate that you have this. I feel so fortunate that I'm alive and that I'm in the Foo Fighters and I get to share this with all of my friends.
The impetus, like, to create some stuff was not stemming at all from Kurt's death, but it was actually stemming from the fact that Nirvana broke up. It was just to keep going, isn't that it?
Well, it's just that I've been in bands since I was 14 years old, and it was what I loved doing. It's what I'd done all my life, and I love to write music. I love to perform. I love to go on tour for a certain amount of time, and so it was just basically just missing the life that I'd lived for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you're sitting at home with absolutely nothing to do until you just get off your ass and do something, you know?
So there's that, but then also, you know, I wanted us to be a band, you know? When people when they first found out that we had started this new band, they immediately wanted to do interviews. I'm like, there's nothing to fucking talk about yet, you know? Like, we've only practiced 6 times, and, you know, I don't have any funny, like, what's the crazy shit happened on tour stories. So it was like, let us be a band for a while, you know?
But when you have a band of 4 people, I think they should be considered a unit. It shouldn't be the 3 guys with this one person out in front. I don't believe in that, really, at all. I don't.
Well, like, were you worried about the fact that, like, I mean, you were seen as a drummer and you suddenly had to go out front? I mean, was it scary?
I mean, it still is. It's horrifying. Have you ever done it?
No.
It's so...
no, I've never drummed.
Terrible. Well, drumming is all right because you can sort of hide behind these big tubs and you head down and just... But when you have nothing but this little microphone stand in front of you, I'm almost skinny enough that I can hide behind it, but... There's you know, and everybody looks at you like, okay, let's see some charisma. I want some humor. I want some banter in between songs, and you know, it's really scary.
I think that in Nirvana I had a lot of freedom because I was just the drummer, and I could just go completely crazy back behind everything, and it made it better, you know. In this band, I have to sort of have some level of restraint or control, you know, and I take this very seriously. Like, I take the music that we make very, very seriously. As much as when we play, we sort of seem like we're just goofing around.
I love playing, you know, and I had my ass sitting in a drum stool for 10 years, you know, and now I get to stand up. So damn right I'm gonna jump around as much as I can, you know. I mean, we're no symposium, don't get me wrong.
Okay, well then, was there any resentment from people at all, thinking like, wait a minute, you know?
I think so, but no one ever had the balls to come to my face and say, you know what, you're a real bastard for just getting up and starting another band. Like, you're supposed to be this brooding, we never want to see your face again, except for those old live photos where they're all black and white and blurry, and you know.
You were going to be in a band that was going to get more attention than your average band who were only around for a month.
This is true.
Right.
And we realized that, like, we knew that, you know, that people were going to want to talk to us, and people were going to give us this special attention because of the bands that we had been in or whatever. But there was nothing we could do. I mean, there's not, and I mean, of course, I feel fortunate that I'm able to sit and do an interview that people are going to watch. I mean, I'd be a fool to think, you know, God damn it, this is such a drag that everybody comes to see our band play. It's, you know, I'd be a fucking liar if I said that.
Yeah, because the greatest thing about this band is that it's a new band, and
we're looking towards the future, and it's nice because we have so many things to look forward to. And most of the interviews I do, people just ask about Nirvana. So it's like, I'm trying to look towards the future, and I'm trying to like move ahead, but people always like pull me back, you know. So that's the hardest thing, and mainly it's in interviews, like where people will ask one question about the Foo Fighters, and then Nirvana, you know, and then they ask all these Nirvana questions, and it's like, you know, Nirvana was fun, and it was, you know, it was great, but it's gone, you know, and so this is what I'm trying to focus on. Like,
being in Nirvana was great, and I had a lot of fun, and it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. But it's over, and you know, I mean, Nirvana, to a lot of people, Nirvana was this thing. I don't even know. To me, it was a band with two friends of mine. To other people, it was this important voice of this lost generation. And to me, it was just, you know, a couple people having a good time on stage.
I didn't talk about Nirvana for the first, you know, like 2 or 3 years of being a band for lots of reasons. One, the biggest reason is that, you know, a good friend of mine died, and I didn't just want to go and talk about it to everybody because I was still trying to work that out on my own, you know. And
did you talk to your band about it? Like, could you guys like?
Yeah. Well, it's
you
not
have to be
something.
a friend, not just a bandmate at that point, right?
Yeah.
You have a song on here called "Let It Die," right?
Yeah, but see, that's the thing.
Is it about that? Or?
Well, here's the deal: is that for the longest time, I wouldn't talk about it, and then I started talking about it a little bit, and now I'm open to talking about it, whatever you need to know within limits. Mm-hmm. But then, for the longest time, I wouldn't write lyrics that I thought people would associate with something like that.
Sort of had this distaste for artists who sort of market their emotions or turn their emotions into a commodity. You know, I've always thought that was really sort of bizarre, and it, to me, I didn't see, while we were recording this record, I didn't see it as something that was going to end up in the hands of, you know, hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
The thing is, I write a song called "Let It Die," and it's about two people that fall apart. It's about someone that you feel helpless to their to watching them throw it all away, you know. And I write something like that, and I look at it, and I go, God damn it, I'm gonna have to answer that question a
sounds like
thousand times.
That's what it sounds like, and the lyrics.
But can you imagine that in my life, how many people I've loved or lost or befriended?
I didn't think that at all when I heard
I knew when I wrote it, but that's the thing, is like I can't keep this conversation from. I can't let this conversation keep me from writing anything. Mm-hmm. So no, it's not about Kurt and Courtney.
I think if Kurt hadn't died, you'd still be in Nirvana and never have written any of your songs that you wrote for Foo Fighters and never have gone out and done it. Like, in a way, his death liberated you in a weird sense, right?
I mean, I know that I would still be recording and writing stuff of my own. Everybody in this band goes out and does side projects.
Right.
You know? So when they come back to this, it's the Foo Fighters, and then.
But you weren't doing that when you were in Nirvana. You weren't doing side projects.
Well, I was, but I just wasn't letting anyone hear it.
And people, to this day, look at it and think about what Nirvana meant, and we know the rest of your story. And I think it's natural for fans or people who appreciate these individuals. We don't know them like you, but they wonder, well, what could have been if a few things went different or this person lived on.
There's only one question I want to ask about Nirvana, because you know, I really want to talk about the Foo Fighters. But is there any other projects in the work down the road?
For what?
For Nirvana.
Oh, for Nirvana.
Yeah, because everyone is asking us. You got to ask Dave.
I don't even really know.
I know it's not on the top of your mind, but
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, of course, something else will come out someday. And there's some stuff that hasn't been released that was recorded, but there's really not much. We can't do like
we can't do the anthology trip because we only went to the studio like twice.
Right.
So
Right.
and we used everything that we recorded pretty much. So there's only a couple songs left, and someday they'll probably come out.
Is it much more easier for you to talk with journalists about? I know that you are quite involved in the way that Nirvana is going to make a live and demos album soon.
You know, I don't know what the fuck. I think I mentioned in one interview, someone said, do you know if anyone's planning on releasing any more Nirvana stuff? And I said, probably. So then it comes out in the headlines like,
yeah,
Dave Grohl says Nirvana will release demos and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, I don't know, you know, I'm not the boss. I don't know if, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's probably 2 songs, 2 completed songs that no one's ever heard. Like, that's it. Like, there's not like hundreds and thousands. I mean, we were only a band for like, what, 5 years or something? Only went to the studio like 4, no, it's not like the Beatles anthology. So I honestly don't know, but I'm sure that in time, some more stuff will come out.
Yeah.
That's not a guarantee, but I'm sure that it will, you know?